electoral candidate, the amount of mud that his comrades in the PPP and his comrades in the PNC show on him would be enough mud for the PPP to take and bury it. So it's a lose-lose situation. I don't see any win coming out of this nonsense.
Development, educational development, protection of the investment. If we don't have that in place, that money will completely disappear. And at the end of 5 years, we don't know what's going on. So a politician wakes up and thinks that I can get votes because I can put down a football stadium in the middle of a place in which only 10 people play football. Or you end up, for example, with...
The government is not managing this. The government's attitude towards this is if we don't talk about it, it will go away. I regret to inform them that it will not. And so for me, I have been...
These elections are extremely critical elections, not only because they come before the national and regional elections scheduled in 2025, but it's a turning in the party. It ought to be a point in which the party engaged in a serious sort of reflection as to where we are, how we need to go forward. We need to consider the things we need to put to this.
But if you have a group of people who you're looking to lead the coalition or to be a main player in the coalition, behaving like spoiled children, if I can get it, I'm going to block it up, then shouldn't you pull the mat from under their feet? Listen, we are fed up, we are tired, we are not going to encourage this damn thing. We're going to show all we support behind WPA.
3. And fourthly, an economic development plan that is 10 to 15 years. We can all agree the fundamentals of that, and we can argue and have election discussions about how we can tweak it. But at least that will signal not only to our population, but to international investors a level of stability for economic growth. One of the other things that we...
Examples all around the world, then you know that we're not being chicken little and saying, oh, the sky is falling. This is presenting a clear and present threat to our country, and our government has to act. And we as the opposition, we have to hold their feet to the fire and make sure that they do what is in the best interest of the people.
Seen one instance where any member of the opposition, I would say, would have engaged in any similar comment, like this in relation to any member of the National Assembly whatsoever. So this is a substantial issue that exists in the context of the National Assembly on the side of the PPP largely. Internally, you've pointed out instances where certain unacceptable statements would have been made, and as a party...
Leaders in the PNC and nationally will have to go quietly into a corner and rest themselves. Like the caller said, the political career over. The political career over. A whole lot of people were slinging mud.
For leaders. But I'm particularly concerned in relation to the comments made by persons who are not necessarily ordinary members of the party, but persons who hold significant posts and positions within the party. It is public knowledge record that some of the comments that you refer to were comments made by Mr. Prince Holder. And he was attacking Natasha Singh Lewis.
We need a petroleum commission like yesterday. We need institutions, not an individual waking up tomorrow and saying, oh, we're going to have a gas ashore, or we're going to have a Skeldon project, or we're going to do this, without any obligation on their part or through our laws to go through feasibility studies to justify this and to engage the population through its means in having real discussions about that.
That development plan that
you have to respect us as the parliamentary opposition, and I will insist that we be respected as the parliamentary opposition. I do not intend to sit there and take Utah's abuse.
One love, Delta9 family, welcome back to the flight. Now if you haven't already, take some time out. Press that thumbs up button. and subscribe so that you'll stay updated on all these entertaining, trending topics in Guyana and the diaspora. Thanks.
Alone. Because we have your interests at heart, we want to remove the PNC. I sit here every day and I say, I don't believe anybody, we want to remove the PPP. I sit here and I say, unless you have a coalition going into the elections, I don't think it's an easy task to remove the PPP. But if you have a group of people who you're looking to lead the coalition or to be a main player in the coalition, behaving like spoiled children, if I can get it, I'm going to block it up, then shouldn't you pull the mat from under their feet? Listen, we are fed up, we are tired, we are not going to encourage this damn thing. We're going to show all we support behind WPA. So here what happened? We ain't splitting the black people vote. We're voting as a block with and for the WPA. Don't tell me that your only option is the PNC, and if the PNC dysfunctional, you got to deal and wheel with the PPP. No, you have options. Exercise your options. That's what I want to say to you this morning. Exercise your options. You see it. What people say, I look for, where you see daytime, not take juggling for look for my night. It is right in front of you. When this leadership battle is finished in the PNC, Wisdale Forde, Aubrey Norton, Vanessa Kisoon, Sharma Solomon, a whole host of people who are currently seen as prominent leaders in the PNC and nationally will have to go quietly into a corner and rest themselves. Like the caller said, their political career over. The political career over. A whole lot of people who are slinging mud and wherever else they're slinging right now. After these internal elections, they'll have no political career left, regardless of which one of them wins the Congress. Regardless of which one of them wins the Congress. I got my own analyses in my head. Anybody who wins is likely to further fragment the party. Okay? Anybody who wins is likely to further fragment the party. If Aubrey wins, the party is going to be fragmented. And if Aubrey wins and chooses to be the electoral candidate, the amount of mud that his comrades in the PPP and his comrades in the PNC throw on him will be enough mud for the PPP to take and bury him. So it's a lose-lose situation. I don't see any win coming out of this nonsense. Caller, you're live. Caller, you are live. Caller, you're live. Caller, you live. Caller, you're live.
Morning.
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Kodaki and the listening viewers. Welcome to the Camp University. My thing this morning, first and foremost, if Risedale could sit with those acolytes from the PPP camp, is a no-no. He nailed his own nail in his coffin. All of them got the same dogmatic mind. Freddie Kissoon's face was the right face. that Kwame Mackay the through the fee season, that Granger make he had a code that he know that his vices being heard. But moving on. Rizal wear a dark shade just like the donkey that does pull the cart on the road, which means that you can't see far in his nose.
Caller.
Yes.
And we got enough mud slinging. I ain't want your mud slinging. Deal with an issue. Don't sling mud. I ain't hear you.
All right.
Speak to the issue, not the person. Speak to the issue,
All
please. And anybody else calling, please do that. Go ahead.
My final words, I wish they get through the assassination of Mr. Abinat. You have a blessed day.
Thank you, caller. Caller, your life. Caller, good morning, your life.
Yeah, bless the board, Mr. Kodaki, and those who are in and out with diaspora. To the APNU, I want to say to all of my brothers and sisters in this entire country, in and out, you know, I warn them that these couple of days are coming before the election. And it's amazing when you're playing a game of football. If a member of the football, they're right in front of the enemy goal to score, turn back for make a little beat and a little pass, and then beg the ball, go back, tail back to the own goal, and when they don't do, they kick the ball in the goal, and they score against themselves. It's something like that what is going on against this APNU right now. And I want to warn these members, who is sent your labor, a labor day, week, month, sun and rain, and then your labor come into rain. What sense does it make? What is the most important thing? Is the nation, is the nation future your generation? Is the ancestors? Is the African, is the Guyanese population? What is really at stake? What you are out for? I am not saying righteousness must not take its way. Righteousness always have to take its course. But God is the heir of righteousness. And with God in righteousness, that's how it take its course. Not self-righteousness. Not people trying to please selfishness. You know, I want to share a little short story. And this, it was on Geographic, a short while back. Where one set of antelope was going eating nice grass. All the rest animals were grazing. Some lion was under a tree grazing. They were all sleeping, you know, sleeping and them things. But this antelope was so far away, and they were there. Two of them were so excited and become excited over the green lustful grass, and they run and play, and then they have a little scuffle. The two of them begin to fight. Somebody rest run in, try to part. They didn't allow them to separate them. They continue licking one another head, and the lions them watching all the time. The lions them begin to get a little disturbed, get up. The fight was still going down a distance. The lion, the razor, like around there was a thing about going nowhere. But then the lion, they walk slowly like spectators. They look like spectators. When they think the lion them was going to see who will win the fight, the lion was going to see who they could get for eat. The lion, they want to eat one, you know. The lion, them go and catch all two of them. When the chase begin, both of those antelope, the pack run away. The two of them become so weak that none could run for the whole, save the whole life. That's what's going on in the APN, you know. When y'all begin to clash against each other, the enemy lie them still and watching y'all. They're going to leave y'all to burn up y'all in the tree to attack each other, and in the end, they're going to devour all of y'all. If this PPP stay in there 1 more 5 years, it don't make sense. It don't make sense, especially for the African race. I see no way up. It's bare pessimistic behavior going on. I don't know what is the purpose of our leaders. What is the purpose of the APNU? However, Mr. Kodaki, God bless your program. If they don't get their act together, if they don't get their behind together and allow God to make its way and have its way, I am telling you, Guyana done with, it's over. All because of the leaders that we have out there, not because of the PPP government, but because of the so-called leaders that we have that is self-righteous. God bless this country, Guyanese, standing up for righteousness. We're going to get there by the grace of God. That Mr. Combs over years was sowing a seed is real evil. Allow God's word to take its course. Allow things to unfold in God's time and God's way. Guyanese have a blessed day. We're going to get there by the grace of God. I respect all my brothers and sisters, but whatsoever be the end, to God be the glory. The righteous mind and heart of Guyanese are not going to be undiagnosed with sorry God, you know. God, everything works for good for those that serve God. Okay, have a blessed day, Guyana. Mr. Kadaki, God bless your program. Please, God bless you.
One love, Delta9 family. Welcome back to the flight. And it is summertime. Summer is here. Summer is here. No. Check out one of GT Youth's biggest hits. Yep. One of the hottest music videos that's out right now. And guess what? You can get the link on the community page and you can check out some of the music video content that yours truly, Delta9 Media, and the team would have worked on. And as we're talking about the summer, things are getting hot in the political arena as well. Things are heating up in the political arena. It's Congress week. It's election time. Elections are around the corner and everybody is vying for the hot seat. One of the hottest seats in politics right now is the seat for leader of the opposition. And it is being highly and very strongly contested by some of the top ranking members of the coalition presently. A lot of persons are talking. There's a lot of buzz around everything that's going on in the coalition right now. And you heard exactly the perspective of our brother, Kamtv. He's expressing the way that he felt about everything that's going on, because a lot of persons similarly got some of them same views when they look at what's going on right now in the opposition. This one claiming that the leader do this, the one fighting down this one. This one is saying that this is rigged. This person saying this person got dirt on them. The person putting dirt on the other person. Who ain't willing for lead, who ain't ready for lead, who too young. All kinds of fight down we see going on, which is good and is bad, because we know ultimately there's no such thing as bad publicity. But ultimately in this race right now, as we see this contest heating up and all of this dirt being thrown all over the place, we know that there's a general election coming up. Not just this internal election, there's a general election coming up. And that's why our brother Cam is saying, man, after y'all done do all of this, who's really going to have integrity and the power, because of the image that they will have retained as far as their political image, to be able to run the country in a real way, or to be respected enough to sit in the presidential seat. So here's what we brother Cam had to say. But let me hear right now, because guess what? On Delta9 Media, we always make sure that we bring both sides of the story. And in this video, guess what? We got like about 3 different persons presenting and making sure that Guyana knows their goals and their views and their individual way as to how they plan to make sure that Guyana moves forward in a fast and progressive way for everybody that's a part of the country. We're going to hear directly from the persons contesting the seat. We're going to hear directly from persons that are in this Congress during this week, both from the AFC and the PNC.
The official figure from the Ministry of Education says that almost 50% of our students do not finish secondary school. So what does that mean? 1 in 2 students coming out of school will not have the ability to be employed in the number one industry and the only industry we'll have at the rate we're going for the next 5 years. Because the oil industry doesn't hire you unless you're qualified, you're certified, the qualifications you have are acceptable. So 1 in 2 students in Guyana who are Guyanese will not get employed and they will not be employable. So then what happens? They have the same desires, they see the same development, they have the same smartphones, and they will not be able to develop legally or earn legally the money that will allow them to enjoy the basic minimum standard of living. So what are they going to do? Get involved in illegal activity. Because the official system says you're not employable. And you can't expect young people to just sit down and say, well, I can't get a job. They're going to get creative. And then you create a whole set of other societal problems. So one of the things that we have to do to develop this equitable society that all of us want to have, or say we want to have, is we have to pour horrendous resources into education to make sure that the quality of the student from the time they get into the kindergarten, that critical stage between 3 and 10, that they have the best educational system, and that we end up with, at the end of common entrance, at the end of primary school, with 90% of our people being at the highest possible level. Then they have to go into secondary school. We have to make sure not all of them going to be academic. They're going to be vocational. The technical, we have to make sure that those people who are better skilled at vocational crafts are going to be able to go start their own business. So I go to school and I'm not academically inclined. I decide I'm going to become a high-class welder. I get the certification. I can get a job or open my own business in a modern Guyana. That's not happening now for 50% of the students. And the social consequences of that are a problem. But the real solution to this is that all the political parties, certainly this is what I advance, and if I am elected as leader of the Alliance for Change, I would seek to persuade my party to say, look, we need to have every single party sit down and decide there are 3 or 4 areas that we will determine a 10 to 15-year plan, and we will all commit to sticking with it. Education, number 1. Health, number 2. Foreign affairs, because of the threats to our borders, number 3. And fourthly, an economic development plan that is 10 to 15 years. We can all agree the fundamentals of that, and we can argue and have election discussions about how we can tweak it. But at least that will signal not only to our population, but to international investors a level of stability for economic growth. One of the other things that just one more minute, that we definitely need is that to manage the system, we need institutions. We need a petroleum commission like yesterday. We need institutions, not an individual waking up tomorrow and saying, oh, we're going to have a gas ashore, or we're going to have a Skeldon project, or we're going to do this, without any obligation on their part or through our laws to go through feasibility studies to justify this and to engage the population through its means in having real discussions about that.
That development plan that you're talking about, we can develop all the plans we want. Under our system of government, a government changes every 5 years, and the government will not be obligated to do it unless that plan, to me, is enshrined in law and probably passed with an overwhelming majority. I'm not saying 2/3, but passed with a voting threshold that does not allow another government to change it. Because, for instance, look, we had very stringent restrictions with regard to how, or regulations with regard to how the Natural Resource Fund would be managed and how money would be withdrawn. And the PP came to power, use their 1-seat majority and change it up so that they could just raid the fund. So I'm thinking that in order for us to indeed develop, and maybe that plan can be included in a national budget, where if it's passed, or maybe separate from the national budget because that requires just a majority, we have either a constitutional amendment or an increased threshold from just a majority to make sure that a future government doesn't change that development plan and the monies budgeted for the projects that constitute the plan. Do you agree that we need legislation?
Yeah, you're drifting into my area that I've been advocating for a long time. We need serious constitutional change. We cannot have a system like the system we have, in which the fact that you have one seat more allows you to do what you want. And I agree with you. This 10 to 15 year plan, and I'm saying that's a minimum. It should be longer. Ought to be protected by legislative procedures. Absolutely. And if you want to tinker or tamper with the fundamental elements, because of course built into that system, you have to deal with unexpected events and shocks to the system. I only use this from the point of view, nothing to do with human rights. The Chinese plan their developmental cycles in 25-year cycles. They don't, and this is a separate human rights issue, and we can park that for a moment. That allows the sort of rapid development that you saw in China. Compare that to your system in America, and again, I'm not dealing with democracy and all the consequences of it. If you continue to have these significant swings and you have economic policy being bogged down by political arguments, you sometimes end up in a difficult position that occurs occasionally in the United States, where you have the country goes into what's it when they're going to default, and neither side is passing the bill, and the entire civil service starts to shut down because there's a political dispute. That affects your system. And in a society that is as complicated as America, with as complicated a financial system as America, when you have that sort of shutdown, the damage it does, not only to confidence, but the damage it does to the entire system is significant. So I am saying, just let us look at what can work. We're a small country. We don't have ideological differences anymore. Since 1992, there are no ideological differences. The PPP just took communism out of their I didn't say not manifesto, took it out of their constituent documents. So
deal with it as though it's a house lock issue, right? Like Venezuela want come and claim their backyard or something like that, and they manage it. They don't tell the nation anything. Right now we have Venezuelan troops built up with war tanks on the border. A Navy ship is patrolling the border, and the government says nothing to the population. You believe it's a dispute over their mother's rum shop or something, and there's no public hearings. The government doesn't have press conferences. As a matter of fact, what is of particular concern to me personally is my observation from since a teenager. Janet Jagan went to Venezuela. She signed an agreement with the Venezuelan president, Andres Perez, I think, for both countries to explore certain types of development. I think it's ecological or environmental study or something like that. The PPP, Javier came into power, he attempted to give away part of the country to Essequibo. So they always operate as though they want to give something to Venezuela to get rid of this problem. Do you trust the PPP that they will not give away part of this country to Venezuela to satisfy their own self-interest? Number one. And two, what could be done, or how would you approach the sectorial committee in Parliament, management of it, for the entire country to be made aware, the people's representatives to be aware of what is going on the border, and then publicly, how do we educate the people continuously? I mean, the government had one little campaign where they have policemen walking with the flag, Essequibo belongs to Guyana, Essequibo, and that's it. So how do we manage this as a country with so much resources now at stake?
Look, the government is not managing this. The government's attitude towards this is, if we don't talk about it, it will go away. I regret to inform them that it will not. And so for me, I have been from the last 3 years, Rickford, pointing out the jeopardy that we are placing this country in. After a 7-month hiatus, the sectoral relations, the sectoral committee on foreign relations was reconvened. And I had to suffer the vilest of abuses. I was called crazy by Hugh Forde because I insisted that you were not going to come to speak to us like little children.
The Minister of Foreign Affairs called you, his colleague member of Parliament, crazy because you inquired about
the because I insisted. No, he called me crazy because he misrepresented the function of the committee. He said our job here was simply to collect information and dispel it. So I had to take him to the standing orders, and he didn't quite appreciate that. So he called me crazy.
Do you consider that abuse?
Of course it is abuse. Of course it is abuse. Kwame McCoy walked across the floor and came to me and shut my mic off and hit it onto the table. Violated my personal space.
Who's the chair of the committee?
Hugh Forde did not correct it. In fact, when it was brought to his attention, he said, oh, he didn't see it. Mind you, Kwame McCoy walked 3 feet in front of him across the floor of the National Assembly to turn my mic off and hit it down. And so, you see, when I talk about abuse of our women, this is what I talk about, and this is why I do not condone it. Because it starts with the microaggressions, and then it gets to the point of Kwame McCoy believing that he could violate my personal space, and Hugh Forde believing that he could call me crazy. This is
under circumstances, I don't think Kwame would have been able to walk out of that parliament. But go ahead, ma'am. Sorry.
No, you see, if people react, it's another kettle of fish.
Mm-hmm.
So, the government is mishandling this. But I'll tell you why. The government fears a united Guyana. They know that we have said that we will support them in this Venezuela controversy. It was our government that started the proceedings in the ICJ. And so we have said that we will support them. They have taken that to mean that they could treat us anyhow, tell us anything, and we must still support them. I had to make it clear to Hugh Forde that we will not. We absolutely will not tolerate your disrespect and sit here and take it. I am trying to make a point. I am the chair of this committee. I will tell you when you're allowed to speak, is what Hugh Forde is saying. But in the same breath, we want you to unite with us on this matter. You have to respect us as the parliamentary opposition, and I will insist that we be respected as the parliamentary opposition. I do not intend to sit there and take Hugh Forde's abuse. Hugh Forde would not call an ambassador or another female in politics that he wants to impress overseas crazy. Would he call an ambassador crazy if she were to ask a clarifying question? No. What makes him think, he could dare to risk that with a Guyanese woman? And so, for me, we have to get a handle on this Venezuela issue.
I hope the Minister of Foreign Affairs is taking note. I know that he would hear. I hope he's taking note. No, and I will call him out on it.
We have to get a handle on this, Rickford, because look, in Region 1, for example, Guyanese are outnumbered 3-1. Now, let me say this. We have no problem with migration, but the government has to set up a mechanism to monitor and to control migration. There's not a system of registration set up, so that we do not even know what the actual numbers are. The IOM cannot tell us exactly what the numbers are.
Motion, it's not allowed by the speaker. It's you ask questions, they take a long time to answer it. The standing orders require that members they be on Wednesdays. They don't convene the parliament on Wednesdays. Is Guyana true democracy under the PPP government?
No, it absolutely isn't. It absolutely is not. Which is why it is important that we continue to become stronger and stronger as an opposition. That is our mandate, to hold this government accountable through advocating, through the proposal of better alternatives and reforms where necessary, and yes, peaceful protest if necessary.
Longevity has its place, and what do you mean by that? Can you expand a little more on that? I read today a comment where someone said Forde just come in the party, and there was a response, well, he's been in the party for 14 years. Is it that what you're addressing? And what's your view on people who say, if you just come into the party, you must fall in line, disregard your talents, disregard your skill and eligibility for office, and they just push people aside? And is this a sick in the party? A sickness, illness in the party?
Rickford, that is exactly what I was seeking to capture in that comment, in that interview there. I believe that is a critical challenge within the party, where it is constantly being said as a means of disentitling you and removing you of being eligible as a candidate for office within the party. The barometer, the measurement in many persons' minds is how long you would have been a member in the party, as opposed to what contribution you could bring in relation to the challenges that the party face in a particular point in time. These elections are extremely critical elections, not only because they come before the national and regional elections scheduled in 2025, but it's a turning in the party. It ought to be a point in which the party engaged in a serious sort of reflection as to where we are, how we need to go forward. We need to consider the things we need to put to the side and put off at this point. The party is 67, almost 68 years of age. In the life of a person, if we put it that way, that is an extremely mature person. Certain behavior, certain tendencies, certain mindsets as a candidate for office within the party. The barometer, the measurement in many persons' minds is how long you would have been a member in the party, as opposed to what contribution you could bring in relation to the challenges that the party face in a particular point in time. These elections are extremely critical elections, not only because they come before the national and regional elections scheduled in 2025, but it's a turning in the party. It ought to be a point in which the party engaged in a serious sort of reflection as to where we are, how we need to go forward. We need to consider the things we need to put to the side and put off at this point. The party is 67, almost 68 years of age. In the life of a person, if we put it that way, that is an extremely mature person. Certain behavior, certain tendencies, certain mindsets ought to be put aside at this stage in the party's development. I believe that the party needs to attract young people, and this sort of wait your turn, you just come comments serve really and truly to push people to the side.
This election campaign has gotten really ugly. I noticed particularly very misogynistic attacks on some of the women. Amanza Walton Desir, Natasha Lewis, Annette Ferguson, Coretta MacDonald. What is your view on misogynism, or at what I call misogynism, misogynistic attacks, glorifying domestic violence, calling women names that are demeaning, designating somebody's side chick because they're campaigning for a particular person, and calling somebody a fake Muslim? What do you think of this type of campaigning in the party? And I must say that I don't see them attacking the PPP so viciously And on the other hand, what is your view on domestic violence and persons glorifying domestic violence and using it to attack a victim?
I find that reprehensible and unacceptable. It's not the sort of thing that I support. I know that the comments that you have pointed out, you've pointed out those sort of comments in relation to a number of women who, within the party as an organization, have different internal positions as to who they support for leaders. But I'm particularly concerned in relation to the comments made by persons who are not necessarily ordinary members of the party, but persons who hold significant posts and positions within the party. It is public knowledge record that some of the comments that you refer to were comments made by Mr. Prince Holder. And he was attacking Natasha Singh Lewis, referring to her as a so-called Muslim or something to that effect, and some other derogatory term in relation to Annette Ferguson. And we would have seen other comments directed towards Manza Walton Desir. This is part of the issue that I believe needs to be addressed. It becomes worse in terms of the party internal elections and processes, and it's part of the political culture which exists in the party. I'm not going to deny that it don't exist, and it needs to be put to the side.
Well, there are attacks on both sides, from different sides, but these are particularly reprehensible, and I'm happy that you've spoken out against. So let's move on. And in terms of violence against women, it's a particularly worrying trend in the country, in the parliament. Kwame McCoy allegedly physically assaulted a member of parliament. Nothing happened. You have a former minister of government who, while serving as a minister, allegedly sexually assaulted women that the police never properly investigated. He was never prosecuted. As a matter of fact, the police took steps to protect him as though they were his counsel. You have persons, including members of parliament, who suffer domestic violence, and they're attacked for it. As a party leader, what's your view on this? And if you're a party leader, what steps you will take to protect the women and ensure that misogyny is not part of the equation in the politics of the party?
Rickford, in the context of the society that we live in, this is not simply an issue for the party as an organization. It's a wider societal issue where people would bring their prejudices, their positions, which exist in society. So I believe the party as an institution must lead as an integral member of society by establishing a policy on these issues that will lead to disciplinary processes in terms of criticism, comments, derogatory comments. And the party must always take the high ground in relation to these issues and rejecting it. It must become part of the organizational culture to reject those things. At the level of the National Assembly has become an unacceptable institution, to put it mildly, where these sort of things are permitted by the Speaker. There's no form of sanction that is brought to bear consistently in any rigorous manner in relation to the offending members of Parliament. In relation to these issues, I have not seen one instance where any member of the opposition outside would have engaged in any similar comment like this in relation to any member of the National Assembly whatsoever. So this is a substantial issue that exists in the context of the National Assembly on the side of the PPP largely. Internally, you've pointed out instances where certain unacceptable statements would have been made, and as a party leader, we need to condemn them despite wherever they come from. I know you pointed out earlier that it was on both sides, and I did acknowledge that. I acknowledged the attacks on Manza Walton Desir, and I acknowledged the attacks on Natasha Singh Lewis and Annette Ferguson. So it's something that is happening right now in the party. It's something that needs to be cut off.
And Coretta McDonald.
And Coretta McDonald.
All right, so I'm happy that you've pronounced on that. And let's move on to some other important issues. I asked Amanza Walton Desir the same question when I met you for it. It was under Desmond Hoyt's leadership. And so I think it's very incorrect to say that you were only 40 years in the party. I've left Guyana for at least 30 years, and when I left Guyana, you became active in the party. But who in the party who among the party stalwarts, most, and it doesn't have to be one person, you most admire, and if you were to cast yourself in the light of, or the influence of one particular person, who that might be?
For me, it would be, but I have to say two persons, so you give me one. I believe it would somehow be between Mr. Hoyt and Mr. Burnham. You know the relationship that we had with Mr. Hoyt, paying attention to him, the constant advice that he would have provided, the sort of firm leadership that he provided to the party during that period, the sort of resistance that he offered against the PPP, what they were doing at the time, the sort of aggression that he brought to bear in relation to the party, the sort of strength that the party demonstrated during those years when we would have been in opposition during very trying times, and the sort of force that he brought to bear. He was able to first basically win an election in the 1997 election, if you recall, had the processes investigated, was not able to return to power, but was able to substantially reduce the period of office for the PPP in power at that time. He was able to galvanize the party base from the lower level, from the grassroots, as we would refer to it, all the way. He was able to establish a solid movement of people across the party structure at that time.
You mentioned a particular period in time in 1997. I went home. I came home to Guyana to work on that campaign. Sean Cambridge, Dr. Sean Cambridge, and I worked on the public relations campaign. I mean, not because I was involved in it, but I think that was the greatest campaign that we've seen in Guyana so far. That 1997 campaign. Even the smallest child was singing that song, Desmond, right? And the PNC won that election. In order to steal the election for the PNC, Dugnot Singh, who was the then chairman of the Elections Commission, had to reconstruct the statements of poll because they all disappeared. And in reconstructing them, they put their own thing. And we were able to demand that CARICOM sends an investigative team to go through back all of the ballots. They found substantial irregularities, including the production of 43,000 extra ID cards. And we don't know, that's what they found that was unused. And as you said, that election was nullified by Justice Claudette Singh, who ironically is now the chairman of the Elections Commission.
I believe some of these things that are done, they're doing, they are deliberately trying to do things so that the Amlal gets the benefit, and at the end of the day, they get the politically aligned DPP to say that because of these mistakes, or because of these reasons, no charge should be brought against the Amlal.